Maybe if there's a chance of severe weather today, don't go somewhere where you know you're not going to have shelter. Don't go out to ride your bike on a trail, or don't go for a long hike. Take some precautionary measures to make sure you're closer. And that takes thought. You have to put consideration into it in advance. It takes planning and practice to a sense. Check the weather every morning and make a habit of it. I know most people always just go ahead and check, hey, is it going to rain today? Is it not? Great. Take it one step further. Are we going to have severe thunderstorms today? So make that a part of your everyday routine, and that way when you go through storm season, it's smooth sailing.
In Kansas, with its variety of severe weather events, such as tornadoes, large hail, damaging winds, lightning, and flash flooding, it's wise to be prepared. The peak season for tornadoes in Kansas is April through June. Severe Weather Preparedness Week is March 4th through the 8th. And if you don't have a severe weather safety plan in place, it's time to develop one and have everyone in the family practice the plan so they know what to do when severe weather occurs. On today's Sound Living, being prepared for a variety of weather events. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. K-State climatologist and manager of Mesonet, a network of environmental monitoring stations across the state, Chip Redmond, says that we need to be prepared for all types of severe weather and know what to do if we're at home, outdoors, or in a vehicle. Chip, as we look at severe weather awareness for Kansas, a lot of things to cover, but it all starts with preparedness, doesn't it?
Yeah, having a plan, such things as just knowing how to get your alerts, whether you've got a weather radio or, you depend on other sources such as news media and that kind of thing, as well as talking to your family. Have a communications plan within your family. If you find out about a warning, text your family members and your friends in the area. Let people know that. It's saved lives, especially down south where they don't have widespread good communication methods because they're really rural, similar to what Kansas would be, really rural. So have a plan like that, and then also have a go bag. Have something that you can take with you to a shelter that's got any medicines you might need, extra pair of clothes, a radio, so you actually know what's going on and know when things are expired and over. And then lastly, have a little bit of food, a little bit of water, something to eat, something to keep the kids entertained. That'll all go into being planned when severe weather does develop.
In terms of where to go, do we still try and find a specific place in the home?
Yeah, so it's always a central location in the home. So if you have only a first floor and you don't have a basement, indoor, central located hallway or central located bathroom would be ideal. You don't want any windows. If you have a basement's always the best place. Underneath the stairs is also the best place in a basement. And if you're caught outside, there's other risks as well. Don't go underneath trees and don't try to outrun it in your car. A ditch is, believe it or not, a really safe place to go if you're outside. You get down that ditch, all the debris, which is really your biggest problem if there's a tornado or a strong wind event, all that debris will typically blow over you. With lightning threats as well, inside, not porches, not overhangs. You could still get hit by lightning in those areas. Inside, away from metal windows, and somewhere safe. Preferably not hooked into a wall, so not on a computer. Don't have your cell phone charging and you're talking on it or holding it or looking at it. Or in the shower as well. Anything with outdoor electrical potential that can carry electricity, whether it's water or wire, you do not want to be operating those things during a storm, because if there's a lightning strike on something away from your house, it's going to travel through that and get you.
I know my wife always talks about her dad yelling about, get your shoes, and it's important because, as you mentioned, the debris is a big factor not only during the storm but after a storm.
Yeah, shoes are critical. You just don't know what you're going to encounter. You might come upstairs and end up with this glass laying there. Maybe a tree just brushed your house, and there's glass all over the entrance to your basement. We're trying to minimize risk for everyone involved and save lives. And you could get cut, you could get diseases that way, infections. And so just shoe wear. Usually boots are always nice, but having shoes is a great first start.
When you were talking about being outside on the porch, I was thinking about all the people that run out there with their cell phones to start snapping pictures and take video. And yeah, that may be exciting, it may be fun, but extremely dangerous.
Think of all the people that did that didn't have their videos posted. there's a reason those videos weren't posted. And so, yeah, if you do that, you run the risk of getting hit and you're putting yourself in potential danger. And it's not worth it. It might look cool for 5 minutes, get you your 5 minutes of fame, but think long term. Where are you going to be in 10 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? Is it worth it? That 5 minutes of fame.
Tornado activity in Kansas is really primarily the peak season, April to June?
Yeah, correct. The peak season is springtime into early summer. It can vary. We can have tornadoes as early as January and tornadoes as late as December. Tornadoes don't know a season. They just need the atmospheric conditions in place to exist. We get around 95 or so tornadoes on average a year in Kansas. The last few years we've been really down. The least we've ever had was 17 in 2020. And the most we've ever had is almost 200 in 2008. So a big swing and a big window there of tornado activity. We've definitely been on the downside, and I think that's likely created some complacency. We've gotten really lucky. Will that go on forever? Probably not. This is Tornado Alley for a reason. We just need to be prepared and take the steps to know what's going to happen and to be knowledgeable in what to do when a tornado warning does come out.
The tornadoes seem to garner a lot of the attention, and noteworthy they should, but also we can get a lot of damage just from a major thunderstorm.
Yeah, severe thunderstorms happen way more than tornadoes, and honestly, they impact more people, and they're really more damaging in the long run. Tornadoes are very hyper-focused in one area where, you look back like the Iowa derecho they had a couple years ago where it was 120 mile an hour winds over, I think it ran a couple hundred miles. That's a big deal. And we could definitely see that kind of a wind event in Kansas, and we have before. So with wind, we average around 600 or so wind damage reports and high wind reports in the state every year. And that creates a lot of problems, not just with trees falling, but you get debris, you get driving difficulty, you get visibility issues. And so there's a lot of factors that go into play with wind that can make it dangerous. Most of the severe thunderstorms are warned with winds over 55 miles an hour. So that's a pretty significant wind. Anything over that is considered severe. For hail, we get around 1,000 reports of hail a year. Severe hail is considered 1-inch hail diameter or bigger. That seems fairly small until they're coming at you at a high rate of speed from the sky. And that's enough to create damage to your roofs, as well as damage to cars. And it can threaten your life. If you get hit with multiple hailstones of 1-inch diameter, you're going to know it. And if you get hit in the wrong place, it can kill you. So we have a lot more hail, and hail does a ton of damage. It'll rip siding off, and it'll ruin roofs and cars. It accumulates quickly too. So you have a whole other problem if you get. Typically, this happens in the high plains where we have so much hail that it accumulates in inches deep. So the hail and wind are much, much more frequent across the landscape of Kansas and much more potential for damage.
So again, we want to seek shelter, and we want to make sure during a hailstorm that we're away from windows.
Yeah, same thing. Like you want to be in the central location of your house for both wind and hail, because you can have intrusions through the windows or even through the roof. Most of the time going to do damage on the outside and not reach the inside, but breaking glass and that kind of thing obviously all lead to additional issues.
The other issue we face is flooding, and flood safety, again, something we need to keep in mind. And a lot of times this has to do with when we're driving more so than maybe when we're at home.
Yeah, well, when you live at home, all you have to really know is your floodplain, right? You have to know what your risk is overall and know where your low-lying areas are and where you typically have water run. And you can plan ahead for that. And you can know the concerns and the risks of where you live. Typically, you look at that for insurance, too. But driving, you're mobile, you're moving. You don't know all the risks out there. You don't know the problem areas. And the common saying is, turn around, don't drown. And the reason for that is because you might see water over the road, and it might be just a little bit of water. But it can be moving at a high rate of speed. 6 inches or more can move a car effectively. It can also move a person very effectively. As a result, you just don't know what the velocity is and what could happen when you drive through that. And then you're also assuming the road's intact. Water erodes everything. That's the reason our landscape looks the way it does across Kansas, is because of water. And when that erodes, you can see water on the road. You just don't know what's underneath it. You don't know if that road's still intact or if it's been destroyed or disrupted. And so you could potentially be driving into, an opened up culvert or, a big crevice in the ground that might damage your car and perhaps lead to additional problems of moving your car then once it's disabled.
And this can be something that is both urban and rural. I know, like Aggieville, for instance, floods in Manhattan, and rural areas, especially bridges and low-lying areas, can be a real problem.
Yeah, rural areas, the water just has nowhere to go. And a lot of our stormwater infrastructure in the rural areas is just not built to sustain some of the heavy rain rates we've been seeing the last few years. We're getting longer periods between heavy rains, and then we're getting more intense rains when we get them. As a result, the stormwater drains just cannot handle it, and the water runs off, and we get a lot more pooling than running water in rural areas where we don't want it, in usually homes and whatnot. In the rural areas, you tend to get a lot more running water because your terrain typically drives the water behavior a little bit more. But both present the same problems of flooded roads, potentially getting your car disabled by driving through it, as well as you don't know what's underneath that water.
We have people who move into the area from outside the state, and this is information that they need to be very aware of because the weather in one part of the country may be far different than what they're going to experience in Kansas.
Yeah, the weather varies greatly across the United States and across the world. Kansas is home to we get pretty much everything here, and we can get everything in a day. It's not abnormal to see that. So it's a learning curve to people to learn to adjust, but it can change quickly, and usually it will. When we get one extreme, we tend to flip to another extreme. And to be prepared for the climate, be prepared for everything. Have all the pieces and parts you need in your closet to be prepared for the weather. And then the weather is just what you wear on a daily basis. Last thing I would like to mention is that they need to know the difference between a watch and a warning as well. A watch is typically issued in advance of a potential problem. Think of it as, if you're baking and you have all the ingredients for a cupcake in your kitchen, and you take all those ingredients and you put them together, mix them together, and you bake it, well, now you're going to have a cupcake. You have a cupcake warning. And so it's going to happen or is already happening right now. And so be aware of those differences and know that a watch means, okay, I check my communication methods. I make sure my go bag's ready to go, make sure I have shelter if I should need it this afternoon. And then a warning means you need to be in your shelter. You need to have your go bag with you now, and you need to be taking action.
I got to ask, do people practice? Because I know we encourage them to do that, but a lot of people think, well, we've got the plan. We know what we're going to do. We don't need to practice this. Kind of like sometimes at work and at school, you go outside or do whatever you need to do during a fire drill, but do you really know what you're supposed to do if you don't practice?
Well, if you don't practice, then you're not good at it, and then you're going to fail at it. Yeah, you really need to practice. Same as like your fire drills of your house. You know where you'll meet the rest of your family members if you have a fire in the house, and you know what direction to go and what the plan is. Same thing with severe weather. It only takes a few minutes, but just know where you're going to go, see how long it takes you to get there, and know the steps to get there. So if you plan to be outside and whatnot, practice going inside. I mean, it's a change, especially for younger ones. They're confused. They don't understand what's going on. They're probably going to get stressed out because they're going to see you stressed out. So practice a little bit more with them, and so they're not as scared and not as unprepared. Make it fun for them too. Then lastly, know what you're going to do if you're going to be outside somewhere. Maybe if there's a chance of severe weather today, don't go somewhere where you're not going to have shelter. Don't go out to ride your bike on a trail, or don't go for a long hike and end up in the middle of a field somewhere away from shelter. Take some precautionary measures to make sure you're closer. And that takes thought. You have to put consideration into it in advance. It takes planning and practice to a sense. Check the weather every morning and make a habit of it. I know most people always just go ahead and check, hey, is it going to rain today? Is it not? Great. Take it one step further. Are we going to have severe thunderstorms today? Is flooding a problem today? So make that a part of your everyday routine, and that way when you go through storm season, it's smooth sailing.
That's Kansas State University climatologist and manager of Mesonet, Chip Redmond, with information on severe weather preparedness. To learn more, go to mesonet.ksu.edu, mesonet.ksu.edu. Additional information about severe weather preparedness is available online at weather.gov. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.